The drilling platform is slippery from oil and mud spilling onto the deck. As the mud stops flowing, a heavy hydrocarbon mist billows out from the pipe. Visibility on the platform drops to almost zero. An alarm rings out, signaling for workers on platform A to evacuate. The coastal city of Santa Barbara was established in the late 1700s as a Spanish mission. Located at the foot of Santa Ynez Mountains in central California, the mission grew to a small town and became part of Mexico. When California was ceded to the United States, the town's population doubled as American settlers moved in during the gold rush. During the 1870s, the town was promoted as a health resort and a destination for well-to-do travelers from other parts of the US. With its Spanish heritage, mission-style architecture, and Mediterranean climate, it became known as the American Riviera. Beyond its shores lies the Santa Barbara Channel and the Channel Islands, which today is a national park and marine sanctuary. In the late 1800s, oil was discovered in neighboring Summerland on the southern coast of Santa Barbara County. The first oil drilling platform was established in 1896. The once idyllic coastal enclave became disfigured by oil derricks or oil rigs, which began springing up all over the landscape. Drilling platforms were built like man-made islands in shallow waters at the end of a land-based pier. These were the first offshore developments which gave rise to the present-day offshore platforms. By the 1940s, oil production dwindled and most platforms ceased operations. But after World War II, geologists realized that the offshore oil fields extended deeper underneath the channel than they originally thought. Oil companies started conducting widespread exploration in the Santa Barbara Channel, using explosives in their seismic testing. It's a bit like tapping a wall to find a point that sounds hollow. Explosives are detonated and the shock waves travel through the ground. The reverberation is recorded to find the oil deposits. The explosives were noisy and disruptive, rattling windows, cracking plaster, and it filled the beaches with dead fish, which angered the local residents. And their protests put a stop to the ongoing oil activities. In 1953, Congress authorizes federal leases of the submerged outer continental shelf fields. These oil fields are submerged oil fields lying more than 3 nautical miles from the shoreline. Jurisdiction over these oil fields falls under the federal government and not the state of California. In 1966, the federal government signs the first lease in the outer continental shelf field, and in 1967, the first offshore platform Hogan, is installed in the Santa Barbara Channel. Then in 1968, during the Vietnam War, Lyndon Johnson's administration is put under pressure to finance the war without adding additional taxes to the American citizens. The Johnson administration invites oil companies to bid for leases on more than 450,000 acres of oil and gas tracts in the Santa Barbara Channel. A consortium of oil companies, Union Oil of California or Unocal, in partnership with Gulf, Mobil, and Texaco, buy the lease to tract number 241 in the Dos Cuadras field in the Santa Barbara Channel. The federal government raises $624 million from 72 leases, despite significant objections from the local population. Locals are worried the oil platforms will bring oil spills and that the drilling will spoil the beauty of their coastal community and threaten its economy. In September 1968, Union Oil installs Platform A in the Dos Cuadras field under lease number 241. It's anchored in 57 meters of water, 6 miles from shore. On the 14th of January 1969, Union Oil completes the 4th well and then starts work on the 5th well known as A21. When drilling an oil and gas well, there are 2 major stages that form part of the foundation of the well, and they're protected by an outer casing, which is a protective pipe. There are federal regulations in place that stipulate the depth and thickness of the outer casing. The first stage of drilling is to install the conductor casing. The regulations for the conductor casing are a minimum depth of 91 meters and a casing thickness between 41 and 76 centimeters. The conductor casing is there to prevent the well from caving in near the surface. It's like the thick outer shell that'll protect the pipes inside. The second stage of drilling is to install the surface casing. The The regulations for the surface casing are a minimum depth of 265 meters and a casing thickness of between 24 and 51 centimeters. The surface casing safeguards the hull from unstable formations at deeper drilling depths. It protects the fresh water that lubricates the drill bit from being contaminated, and it carries cuttings to the surface. A surface casing also acts as a foundation for the blowout preventer stack. The blowout preventer is a critical piece of safety equipment that controls the well pressure during drilling operations. Oil and gas deposits are under pressure. When you drill into that deposit, there are two things that prevent the oil and gas from shooting out of the well uncontrolled: the blowout preventer and the weight of the drilling mud that's pumped down into the well pipes to meet the oil and gas. The conductor casing and surface casing act as a steel backbone to ensure the well is stable, and they protect against pressure building up and forcing gas or oil to escape from the well. Union Oil makes a request to the US Geological Survey asking it to waive some of the well casing requirements for well A21, and the requests are granted. For the first stage, Union Oil install a 40 centimeter diameter conductor casing, which should be a minimum of 41 centimeters and preferably as thick as 76 centimeters. They drive the conductor casing to a depth of 72.5 meters beneath the ocean floor, which is 18.5 meters short of the 91 meters required by the regulation standard. The drilling team then proceed to the second phase of the drilling process, where they're supposed to lay down the surface casing to a depth of 265 meters. But Union Oil requests and gets authorization from the US Geological Survey to drill well A21 without installing any surface casing at all. On the morning of the 28th of January 1969, 14 days after drilling operations start on well A21 at the Union Oil platform, the drilling team completes drilling the third phase. Protective casing called the intermediate casing is installed. An intermediate casing has a diameter of 18 to 34 centimeters and allows drilling through challenging high-pressure formations like shale or fractured rock before reaching the target production zone. The drilling team stops at a depth of 1,060 meters, which is a few meters short of their final depth of 1,067 meters, where the production zone is located. The final few meters fall into phase 4 of the drilling operation, where the team will drill and install the production casing. The production casing is smaller in diameter at 14 to 24 centimeters and serves a bit like a needle that pierces the reservoir. To complete the well, tubes are installed inside the production casing to transport the oil and gas from the reservoir to the surface. At 10:45, the drilling teams start to pull up the phase 3 drill bit so they can move to the last phase of drilling. As the phase 3 drill bit reaches 914 meters below the ocean floor, the last 7 meters under the well ruptures from the high pressure in the reservoir. The weight of the drilling mud quickly loses a battle to hold back the highly pressurized oil and gas. A torrent of oil, gas, and drilling mud roars up the drill casing and spews out, shooting 27 meters into the air, splattering workers and equipment all around the platform as drilling well A21 blows out. The drilling team works desperately to cap the well. They try to screw down a check valve on top of the drill pipe, but the pressure of more than 69 bar is too much for them to handle. Mud continues to flow, spraying 6 meters out of the pipe and spilling onto the platform, making it slippery and dangerous for the team to continue work. The mud spraying out the pipe is followed by a heavy gaseous hydrocarbon mist, which escapes from the pipe, reducing visibility on the platform to almost zero and burning the men's eyes. The deafening hiss of the gas drowns out the instructions that the crew shouts to each other. As oil and gas continues to spill out, the chances of an explosion increases. The workers on platform A are told to evacuate. Only emergency personnel involved in closing the well stay on the deck. These remaining workers forced an 800-meter long section of drill pipe down into the well shaft. Then they squeeze the top of the pipe closed with a blind ram, which is like a crimping tool that crushes the pipe shut. 13 minutes after the blowout starts, the blind ram contains the leak and stops the blowout at the platform level. The emergency team are able to catch their breath and assess the damage. Workers on the rig and nearby boats noticed bubbling on the surface of the ocean, 200 meters east of the platform, then 100 meters west of the platform, and eventually gas starts bubbling up around the platform itself. Plugging the well at the top of the pipe forces gas and oil to escape further down the well shaft. The conductor casing is short and there's no surface casing installed. High pressure oil and gas forces its way through the sides of the well shaft below the seabed. Natural fault lines under the seafloor form cracks under the pressure and tear their way through the seafloor in 5 separate places. An oil slick spreads over a 25 square mile area east of the platform. At 13:15, 2.5 hours after the incident, the US Coast Guard receives a report that there's a spill coming from Union Oil Platform A. The Coast Guard call Union Oil to offer their assistance. A Union Oil official takes the call and confirms the blowout, but says everything is under control. There's no oil escaping, and declines any offer of help. At 0800 the following day, a Coast Guard helicopter is sent to the platform to verify the report. The crew find a large slick of oil covering 75 square miles of ocean, extending several miles from the platform. Local news report the oil spill, and Union Oil is swamped with calls, forcing company officials to confirm the spill. John Fraser quotes 5,000 gallons to downplay the accident, but actual estimates are 5,000 barrels, not gallons, which is the equivalent of 210,000 gallons per day spilling into the ocean. At Platform A, work continues to plug the well and the fissures in the seafloor. Workers pump drilling mud into the well to cover and seal the openings, then pour cement over the hole and fissures. A drilling barge from Los Angeles arrives to help drill a relief hole near the bottom of the well shaft so they can pump more drilling mud into the well and seabed fissures. As the crude oil continues to escape, wind and swell spread the oil over hundreds of square miles of open water. By the 31st of January, days after the blowout, the oil slick covers 30 square miles of ocean, and another 200 square miles of lighter oil covers the Pacific around Santa Barbara. Luckily, the oil slick remains offshore. On the 1st of February, a shift in the wind pushes a relatively small amount of oil onto the shoreline. The Rincon surfing area, a surf hotspot located at the Ventura and Santa Barbara County line, is the first beach to be affected. On the 4th of February, a winter storm with heavy winds moving from southeast to west, together with surging tides, pushes the oil slick towards Santa Barbara Harbor and onto beaches of southern Santa Barbara County and northwestern Ventura County. Oil containment booms are placed along harbors and beaches to protect against the approaching oil slick, but by late afternoon, as much as 20 centimeters of oil accumulates on the booms. That evening, at the height of the storm, the wind and surging tide break through the oil booms. On the morning of the 5th of February, residents living along the coast wake up to the stench of crude oil and the sight of blackened beaches sprinkled with dead and dying birds. The disaster they feared most from offshore oil production devastates the beautiful landscape. The sound of the waves breaking on the beach is muted by the thick layer of oil seeping into the beach. Santa Barbara Harbor isn't spared. Crude oil blackens almost 800 moored boats. The northern Santa Barbara Channel Islands, Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, and Ventura are all affected by the spill. Locals look on in horror as they walk the oil-coated beaches, finding dead and dying birds. The incoming tides bring more oil and the corpses of dead dolphins, seals, and more birds. The dolphins' blowholes are clogged with oil, causing their lungs to hemorrhage. Seals, otters, and birds are poisoned from ingesting the oil. The spill kills fish, crabs, lobsters, and shells, and ruins kelp forests. The oil coats birds' feathers, making it impossible for them to fly, and interferes with their waterproofing and insulation, leading to hypothermia. As the birds preen to remove the toxic oil and tar, they ingest it. Residents, surfers, fishermen, community members, and visitors take to the water to rescue oiled wildlife and help with the cleanup. Neighboring communities volunteer to clean up the spill. On the beaches and in harbors, straw is spread on oily patches to soak up the pollution. Oil workers and cleanup crews in two-man skiffs with waste barrels between them skim and soak up the spill using hay and pitchforks. On the beaches, bulldozers push polluted sand and oil-soaked straw into piles to haul away. Around 3,000 tons of straw is used in beach cleanups. A mixture of talc and chemicals is used to dissolve the tar-like oil on rocks, seawalls, and the harbour breakwater. A crust of oil and talc remains after the chemicals evaporate. The crust is blasted with high-pressure water, causing it to disintegrate into brown dust. Oily rocks in some locations are steam cleaned, cooking the mussels and other marine life that inhabit them. Offshore oil contractors and the Coast Guard spray chemical dispersants on the oil from ships. Planes are used to dump dispersants and detergent to break down the oil slicks. Low-toxicity dispersants like polycomplex A and Corexit are used up to 2 miles from the shore. Dispersants attach to the oil, which then breaks down into smaller droplets, which sink into the ocean. The dispersed oil probably won't reach the beach, but it will descend into the water. It's an out-of-sight, out-of-mind solution. Skimming boats fitted with a V-shaped collector scoop oil from the water surface and dump it into barges. Images of the Santa Barbara spill with dead and dying birds are picked up by national newspapers, magazines, and television, triggering environmental concerns across the nation. By the 6th of February, the oil slick affects 100 miles of Southern California coastline, forcing President Nixon to announce a complete stop to oil drilling and production in federal controlled waters in the Santa Barbara Channel. Only the relief well being drilled to intersect the blowout borehole is granted exemption. On the 7th of February, workers make their final attempt to shut off the well. They pump 2,100 cubic meters of their heaviest drilling mud into the well and manage to slow down the leak. At 2000, with their supply of mud almost gone, the leak is stopped. They pour over 1,000 sacks of concrete into well A21, sealing it completely. Although A21 is completely sealed, crude oil continues to leak from the cracks on the seafloor, despite Union Oil's attempt to cement the fissures. On the 24th of February, another well has a blowout on its platform, resulting in another spill. By the 3rd of March, the leakage from the surrounding natural faults slows to around 30 barrels per day and continues to decline, leveling off at 5 to 10 barrels per day over the next 2 to 3 months. Union Oil struggles to seal the cracks. The effects of the spill extend from Pismo Beach north of Santa Barbara to the Silver Strand Beach at San Diego in the south. A considerable length of California's coastline, coves, and the Channel Islands are affected by the spill. The 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill was the third worst spill in the US history, along with the 2010 Deepwater Horizon blowout and the 1989 Exxon Valdez oil tanker spill in Alaska. An estimated 3.36 to 4.2 million gallons of oil were spilled, and some 30 to 35 miles of California coastline tarred. Over 1,000 workers, 54 boats, and 125 pieces of mechanical equipment were used during the cleanup efforts. Approximately 5,200 truckloads of oily debris were hauled to several major landfill sites in and around the Santa Barbara area. The total cost of the cleanup exceeded $4.5 million US, roughly 38 million in today's dollars. Mammals, birds, fish species, and other sea life in the area were impacted by the spill, and the California Department of Fish and Game reported that over 3,500 birds died, probably more. Environmental and economic losses resulting from the spill were difficult to estimate. The tourism industry in Santa Barbara suffered for many years. A class action lawsuit awarded nearly $6.5 million to owners of beachfront homes, apartments, hotels, and motels. Commercial fishing enterprises temporarily lost access to some fishing grounds. Union Oil also settled a lawsuit brought against it by the state of California, the state of Santa Barbara, and the cities of Santa Barbara and Carpinteria in the amount of $9.5 million for loss of property. Following the blowout, Secretary of the Interior Walter Hickel ordered the oil companies to stop drilling on the outer continental shelf, pending a review and revision of federal drilling regulations. A 34,000-acre buffer zone was added to the existing 21,000 acres of federal ecological preserve between Summerland and Coal Oil Point. if Union Oil had not been granted permission to sidestep existing regulations, this oil spill may have been prevented. In 1970, almost a year after the incident, drilling activities resumed on the outer continental shelf.